Good afternoon. As just introduced, I'm a graphic designer with science communication company Biotext. We're based in Canberra, and we help our clients to produce everything from single-page fact sheets to massive national state of the environment reports. So I'm here to offer some insights into communicating science clearly. So what's the challenge? As you're well aware, science is often complex, abstract, and may seem quite opaque to anybody outside of your own discipline. But the many professionals here often have to communicate scientific information to multiple audiences, and there is a bewildering array of ways to do this. So the solution is strategic communication, guided by a big picture vision. So what's the long-term goal of your organisation? How do you want to relate with your audience? And what does the future of that relationship look like? The answers to these questions should guide what kind of content you create. Your communication design strategy requires clarity of purpose, of message, about your audiences and your content. This clarity can be applied at both a macro level to your entire communication strategy or at a micro level to each individual piece of communication that you create. So let's break it down a bit. Finding clarity of purpose, all content decisions should be guided by that vision. You need to ask, what's the purpose of each piece? Is it to inform, engage, instruct, entertain, provoke discussion, promote change, maybe improve practice, stimulate research? Perhaps it's a legislated requirement, or maybe you just need to attract some more funding. What's the most important information? Can you distill some key messages? What do you want your audiences to do with it? It's the ask. What's its lifespan? Is it something short-term and throwaway, or is it something that's going to last a while and needs updates? As we've already heard, science has a social context. It's not just facts. It's a story, a version of how the world works, how we relate to it, and where we are going. Your information needs to be positioned within that context relative to societal values and goals. Reflexivity is a way of examining your own worldview, your hidden or explicit agendas, the values and the paradigm in which the content was created. How does this relate to the worldviews of your audience? How did they relate to the world? How did they acquire and apply new knowledge? There are many different ways of doing this. As we've already heard, humans are storytellers, so your content does need to take your audience on a journey. And narrative helps you to explain the relevance, which is the space between where what you want to say overlaps with what your audience is willing to hear. And well-designed, purposeful and engaging communication can help expand this space. So, as we've already heard, you need to know your audiences. So who are they? They can be thought of in terms of demographics or professions or maybe the uses of your information. You probably have multiple audiences. So it might be policymakers, land managers, farmers, scientists, school students or academics, funding providers, community groups, the public. You can probably think of more. So what are their needs? What are their cultural values? What languages do they speak? Put yourself in their shoes and ask, what do I want? Why should I care? And what am I going to do with this? Let the audience's needs pull your content into shape rather than you pushing information at them. You may need to produce multiple tailored versions depending on how many audiences you have. So at Biotext, we take an information design approach to content. We develop our communication products to be as effective as possible by integrating writing, editing, design and development right from the beginning of the project. At the large scale, we start by analysing and organising the content. We need to understand the purpose and the desired outcomes. How will the audience access it? Will it be by print? Will it be by web? Will it be by a forum like this? What types of content do you have and how is it structured? And is there a clear hierarchy and a storyline? You might like to start with a draft table of contents or a site map to start exploring these ideas. We then move to the medium scale of mapping and revising. So we write and edit the content for clarity and consistency. We map our key content elements, for instance, chapters or themes, assessment summaries, case studies, to visual elements for navigation structure and information architecture. So we use things like flowcharts or menu items, page tabs, headers and footers, that sort of thing. You're likely to need to conform to a style guide. If you don't have one, you could start with the Australian Manual of Scientific Style. And finally, at the fine scale, we're styling and presenting the content. We copy, edit and proofread. We attend to the details of the presentation of the content. And then when we have a nearly finished product, we check back up the scales to ensure that the content and the design is all supporting the purpose. Accessibility is not a dirty word, it's more than a legal requirement. The Web Content Accessibility Guidelines govern details such as colour contrast, multiple file formats, text alternatives for images, audio, video, etc., aimed at facilitating assistive technologies. But good content design can benefit everyone. If you have well-structured information, use appropriate language, avoid jargon, and explain technical concepts, and if you also employ different means of navigating the content, then you're benefiting your entire audience. The medium is the massage, and no, that's not a typo. The medium influences how the message is perceived. For instance, a radio broadcast needs to appeal to a wide and general audience, whereas a podcast can be very specialised for an audience that has specifically sought that information. So understanding your purpose and your audiences before choosing your methods is really important. So why go digital? Why not stick with print or a basic website? Well, it's obviously because there are so many different digital communication methods available. Websites, electronic file formats, PDFs, ebooks, video, audio, podcasts, interactive animations in Flash or HTML, apps, forums, databases, games. You can probably think of an endless list. Digital formats open opportunities for audiences to interact with your content, with you, and with the community of people who are interested in your topic. But why enable audiences to interact with your content? Because in an information-rich society, people access content in many different ways. Some want a broad and shallow overview, others want to dive deep into specialised topics, some learn by doing, and others want specific details they can take away and apply elsewhere. Complex information can benefit from being broken down into its components or richly connected to other material rather than being confined in a traditional linear format. By layering information or giving people different ways to access it, you can facilitate a wider range of audience engagement and increase the utility of your content. People will share well-crafted, bite-sized digital content on social media platforms, which can increase your audience. For instance, this infographic, which we designed for the Australia Institute, has been shared on Pinterest, not by us. So let's look at how you can bring purposeful interactivity to your content. You can present key messages that expand or link to detailed text. This example that we designed for the Lung Foundation is a treatment pathway where patients can jump in and out of the details of their care. There's an optional menu so that people can switch to a more traditional linear format if they don't like the graphic pathway. There are links to related content, and they can also download a PDF version for print. This is handy, for instance, for doctors in an initial consultation. You should provide navigation alternatives with breadcrumbs or file paths for orientation. For instance, all of the state of the environment reporting that we have produced enable exploration by theme or by assessment summaries or by traditional print PDFs. Presenting content in different ways is really important. So for the National State of the Environment Report 2016, in addition to the web page on the left and the print PDF and the assessment summaries on the right, we produced a series of infographics that pulled out the most important message from each theme and presented them in a really graphic narrative format that appeals to a much wider and more general audience, particularly to the public. And for instance, For instance, this infographic was used by Carl Braganza in this morning's keynote address. Presenting data as dynamic graphs enables your users to interrogate the data as well as presenting trends and patterns. You can hover over the data categories or points, you can filter by data series, you can download different graphic file formats, and you can also click through to the data table and even sort the information as you desire. You can do the same things with spatial data presented as dynamic maps. In this map of sea surface temperature, for instance, you can adjust the colour contrast, and you can click on any point of the ocean to bring up the data that is creating that point. Animated infographics can lead a reader step by step through a story, like in this greenhouse effect. This is on the Department of Environment and Energy website. We won't go through all of it. Or you can take it to the next level and facilitate interaction with the infographics. For instance, you can have hover information, provide buttons so that people can control what's happening in the animation. Creating a survey is a really nifty way to personalise the content while also collecting data from your users. This Cancer Australia database-driven survey provides users with a summary and suggestions for behaviour change based on their lifestyle choices to reduce their cancer risks. And, of course, you can embed multimedia. So this Cancer Australia website has a little video there that introduces the Consumer Involvement Toolkit. The National State of the Environment Report 2016 has 3 different specialised search functions in addition to the generic one at the top of the page, and it also has an invitation to provide feedback to the department. So to recap, be strategic. Clarify your purpose, your story, your audience and your content. Use narrative to take your audience on a journey. Remember that accessibility helps everyone. Digital interactivity is fantastic when used purposefully, but don't use gimmicks just because you can. And partner early with experts for professional outcomes. You can find more content tips at our website, biotext.com.au, and you can also check out the Australian Manual of Scientific Style at sciencestyle.com.au. So I hope you've heard something today that will help you to communicate science clearly. Thank you for having me.